5 years had passed since the Vellum first arrived at Earth. New Velantera thrived in orbit, a jewel of green and blue spinning slowly against the stars. The Vellum population had grown to 12,000. Children who had never known the original Velen ran through forests their parents had only dreamed of seeing again. On Earth, the partnership continued. Mixed communities existed in several countries where Velim had chosen to live among humans, rather than in the orbital habitat. They worked in universities, on farms, and laboratories. They were no longer refugees. They were neighbors, friends, family. Dr. Haywan, now the director of the Xenobiological Institute, published papers with Vellum scientists regularly. Their collaboration had advanced human understanding of biology by decades. New medicines had been developed. New agricultural techniques perfected. The combination of human engineering and Velim biological knowledge seemed limitless. Then, on a Tuesday morning, everything changed again. The signal came from deep space. A distress call. Another species was in trouble. Commander Tae-jin, now promoted to admiral, was the first to hear it. He was older now, his hair streaked with gray, but his eyes were still sharp, still kind. He listened to the desperate message repeating across multiple frequencies. This is the Therum vessel Wanderer. We are fleeing war and famine. 3,000 survivors. We have children. We are dying. Please, anyone, help. Tae-jin felt his heart clench. He remembered another distress call 5 years ago. Another group of desperate refugees asking for help. He called an emergency meeting of the Earth Council. Admiral Do-hyun, now retired but still influential, joined by video link. Minister Nari was there, Captain Ki-jun, Dr. Hai-wan, and several Vellum representatives, including Nira. Another refugee crisis, Minister Jae-sung said heavily. The Therum are 40 light-years away. We'd need to send ships immediately if we want to help them in time. What do we know about them? Ki-jun asked. Nothing, Hae-won said. We've never made contact with the Therum before. We don't know their biology, their culture, their needs. This would be starting from zero. The room fell silent. Everyone remembered how difficult it had been with the Vellum, how much it had cost, how much effort it had taken. Admiral Do-hyun spoke first. I was wrong about helping the Vellum. I let fear guide me. I won't make that mistake twice. We should help the Therum, but can we? Someone asked. We just finished building New Velantera. Our resources are stretched. Maybe we should focus on ourselves for a while. Nira stood up. Her voice was calm but firm. When we came to Earth, we expected nothing. We hoped only that someone might hear our call before we died. Humanity didn't just hear us. You saved us. You gave us everything. If Earth turns away from the Therum now, what message does that send? She's right, Tae-jin said. We set a precedent when we helped the Vellum. We told the galaxy who humanity is. What we stand for. We can't go back on that now. The vote was quick. Everyone agreed. Earth would send ships to help the Therum. The rescue mission launched within days. Captain Ki-jun commanded the fleet. Aboard his ship was a Vellum delegation led by Nira's daughter, now a young adult and a skilled botanist. They brought the crystal enzyme technology, offering it as a gift to the Therum just as it had been given to humanity. We know what it's like to be desperate, she explained to Ki-jun. We know what it means when someone helps. We want to pass that forward. The mission was successful. The Therum were saved. They were different from humans and Vellum, insect-like beings with compound eyes and chitinous shells. But they were people. They had children. They had culture and dreams and hope. They cried when they learned that humanity had come just to help them. That there would be no demands, no strings attached. Why? Their leader asked through translators. Why would you do this for strangers? Ki-jun smiled. Because someone did it for us. Because it's the right thing to do. Because this is what we've chosen to be. The news of Earth's second rescue mission spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. Other species watching from their distant worlds couldn't believe it. In the galactic community, such generosity was unheard of. Most species operated on strict trade principles. Everything had a cost. Everything required payment. But Earth was different. Earth helped because people needed help. Simple as that. Within a year, 3 more refugee groups contacted Earth. The Kalathi fleeing environmental collapse. The Centaurus displaced by civil war. The Havocs surviving a plague that had destroyed their civilization. Earth couldn't save them all alone. But they didn't have to. The vellum helped. Their habitat became a template. Their crystal technology was shared freely. Together, human and vellum engineers designed new habitats, smaller and faster to build. Engineer Jinho, working with Kira and a team of the best minds from both species, developed modular habitats that could be constructed in months instead of years. They were efficient, comfortable, and could support multiple species with different biological needs. "We're getting good at this," Jinho said, reviewing the latest designs. "Maybe too good." "What do you mean?" Kira asked. "I mean, what if this becomes expected? What if species start depending on us? What if we can't keep up?" Kira touched his shoulder gently. "Then we do what we can. We help who we can. We don't let fear of failure stop us from trying." The Aurora Initiative was founded in 2162, 7 years after the vellum first arrived. It was a joint human-vellum organization dedicated to helping refugees and desperate species across the galaxy. They built mobile hospital habitats. They trained rapid response teams. They shared technology freely with anyone who needed it. The funding came from Earth's prosperity. The agricultural revolution created by the vellum crystals had made Earth wealthier than anyone had imagined possible. Food was abundant. Resources plentiful. Earth could afford to be generous. "We have enough," Minister Nari explained in one of her speeches. "More than enough. And when you have enough, the only moral choice is to share." Young people from Earth and New Valenterra joined the initiative in droves, humans and vellum working together, traveling to distant stars to help people in need. They became known across the galaxy. The helpers, the ones who came when everyone else turned away. Agricultural expert Bora, now running one of the largest farms on Earth, trained volunteers in rapid agricultural recovery. "The vellum crystals can restore any ecosystem," she taught them. "But you need to understand the local conditions. Every planet is different. Every species has different needs. Listen first, then help." Dr. Haywan's daughter, following in her mother's footsteps, developed protocols for understanding alien biology quickly. "You don't need to know everything," she explained. "You just need to know enough to keep them alive until you can learn more. Fast triage, then detailed care." Diplomat Yujin, now heading the Earth's Galactic Relations Office, represented humanity at the first Galactic Assembly that Earth was invited to join. It was a historic moment. Earth, the young species standing before the old civilizations. She gave a speech that would be remembered for generations. "We are humanity," she began. "We are new to the stars. We have made terrible mistakes. We have fought wars. We have hurt each other. We have nearly destroyed ourselves. But we learned. We changed. We chose to be better." She paused, looking around at the hundreds of alien species watching her. "The vellum came to us asking for help. They had nothing to offer. No trade goods. No technology we needed. Just desperate people hoping for kindness. We helped them because it was right. And they gave us the greatest gift we could imagine. They showed us who we could be. Now we try to pass that forward, not because we expect rewards, not because we want praise, but because we remember what it feels like to be desperate, to be afraid, to wonder if anyone in the universe cares whether you live or die. We care. Humanity cares. The vellum care. We care about the Therum and the Calathi and the Centaurs and every other species that needs help. Not because we're special, but because caring is what makes life worth living." The assembly was silent when she finished. Then slowly one representative began to applaud. Then another. Then dozens. It wasn't universal. Some species were skeptical. Some thought humanity was naive. But many were moved. 40 years after the vellum first arrived, Commander Tae-Jin was an old man. He walked slowly now, his body worn by time. But his mind was still sharp. He sat in a garden in New Valenterra with Nira, who had also aged gracefully. They watched children play below, human and vellum and Therum and Calathi all mixed together. They spoke different languages but somehow understood each other anyway. "Do you ever regret it?" Nira asked him. "That first decision to let us in?" Tae-Jin smiled. "Every day for the last 40 years someone has asked me that. And every day my answer is the same, no. Never, not for a second." He pointed to the children. "Look at them. That's our legacy. Not the habitats we built or the technology we shared. Them. A generation that grew up believing that helping others is normal, that kindness is strength, that caring about strangers is just what good people do. The galaxy knows what humanity stands for now," Nira said. You don't conquer. You don't exploit. You help. We learned that from you, Taejin replied. You taught us. They sat in comfortable silence watching the sun set over the artificial landscape. Velthar stepped off the transport ship and looked at the blue planet below. Earth. That was what the natives called it. He had seen hundreds of worlds in his 10 years of military service, but this one looked ordinary. Water, land, clouds. Nothing special. Commander Velthar, welcome to Earth. A human stood at the landing pad. The creature wore a dark green uniform with strange symbols on the chest. I'm Captain Jiho. I'll be your liaison during your evaluation. Velthar studied the human carefully. Small. No natural armor plating. Skin that looked easy to tear. 2 eyes instead of the superior 4 that Corvians had. The creature barely reached his chest in height. Captain, Velthar said with his translator device, I have reviewed your species' physical data. I must be honest. The Coalition Council is not convinced your people can survive real combat. Jiho smiled. It was a strange expression that showed teeth. I understand your concerns, Commander. Perhaps a demonstration would help. 3 days later, Velthar stood in a command center watching displays that showed a battlefield on one of Earth's moons. The Coalition had arranged a simple test. A small Devourer scouting party had been detected. Jiho's battalion would engage them. This is foolish, Velthar said to his Corvian second officer. The humans have no natural defenses. Their bones break easily. Their skin offers no protection. They will panic and retreat. The battle began. Velthar watched the humans advance across rocky terrain. The Devourers opened fire. Purple energy bolts struck 3 human soldiers. They fell. Casualties already, Velthar muttered. They should withdraw now. But the humans did not withdraw. They kept moving forward. The wounded soldiers crawled behind rocks and kept firing their weapons. One soldier, his leg twisted at a wrong angle, dragged himself forward with his arms. He was still shooting. Why is he not unconscious? Velthar asked. That injury should incapacitate him. Jiho stood beside him, watching calmly. That's Private Day, young kid. This is his first real fight. He is severely injured. He should stop. Probably should, Jiho agreed. But he won't. Velthar watched in confusion as the battle continued. More humans fell wounded. But unlike any species he had ever seen, they did not stop fighting. A soldier with a shattered arm switched her weapon to her other hand. A man bleeding heavily from his chest kept advancing while pressing fabric against the wound. The humans flanked the Devourer position. They moved fast despite their injuries. Within 20 minutes, the Devourers were dead or retreating. The battle was over. Impossible, Velthar whispered. Your casualties were 40%. No species continues fighting at 40% casualties. Jiho looked at him with those strange 2 eyes. We do. That night, Velthar visited the medical facility. He needed to understand. A young human medic named Suri was treating the wounded soldiers. Private Day lay on a bed, his leg in some kind of mechanical brace. Commander, Suri said, nodding at him. Can I help you? I need to understand your biology, Velthar said. That soldier should have been unconscious from shock. How was he still fighting? Suri continued working on another patient while she talked. Humans have high pain tolerance. We also have something called adrenaline. When we're scared or hurt, our bodies flood with chemicals that keep us going. We can ignore pain and keep functioning, but why? Velthar asked. Why would evolution create such a response? Suri paused. She looked tired. Because on Earth, if you stopped moving, you died. For millions of years, we were both predator and prey. We learned to keep going no matter what. Velthar left the medical facility disturbed. He returned to his quarters and began researching human history. What he found made his blood run cold. Humans had been fighting for their entire existence. Not occasionally, not when necessary, always. Their historical records showed war after war after war. They fought over land, over resources, over ideas he could not understand, over gods that might not exist, over insults to their honor. One war killed 50 million humans. Another killed 20 million. They invented weapons designed to burn each other alive. They created diseases to spread among enemy populations. They built bombs that could destroy entire cities in seconds. And they used all of these weapons on each other. Velthar read about something called the World Wars. Humans had divided into groups and tried to exterminate each other. They fought in frozen wastelands, in burning deserts, in jungles and oceans and skies. Young humans, some barely adults, died by the millions. This cannot be real, he said to himself. No species does this to itself. But the records were clear, detailed, honest. Humans documented their own brutality with frightening precision. The next day, he confronted Jiho. I have read your history. Your species has never known peace. You have been at war for 10,000 years, Jiho nodded slowly. Yes, that's accurate. Why? Why do you fight so much? Jiho sat down. He looked older than his years. Lots of reasons, resources, territory. Sometimes we fight because we're scared. Sometimes because we're angry. Sometimes because we think it's right. But you kill each other. Millions at a time. Yes, Jiho said quietly. We do. It's not something we're proud of, Commander. But it's what we are. Then why are you here? Velthar demanded. Why volunteer for another war? Jiho stood and walked to a window. He looked out at the stars. Because we're good at it. Fighting. Surviving. We've done it for so long that it's in our bones. The Coalition needs soldiers. We need a place in the galaxy. It's a match. You speak as if war is normal. For us it is, Jiho said. We've never known anything else. Velthar returned to his ship that night. He began writing his report for the Coalition Council. But his hands shook as he typed. He had come to Earth expecting to find weak creatures who needed protection. Instead, he found something that terrified him. Humans were not strong. They were not armored. They were not naturally superior fighters. They were simply broken. Broken in ways that made them perfect weapons. A species that had endured 10,000 years of war had learned to survive anything. They felt pain but ignored it. They suffered terrible injuries but kept fighting. They had normalized horror. Velthar looked at his report. He wrote one sentence. Humanity is qualified for military service. Then he added another line. One that he would delete before sending. I fear what we are about to unleash on the galaxy. Private Day recovered from his injuries in 2 weeks. His first question to the doctors was when he could return to combat duty. The doctors cleared him for service. When Velthar heard this, he felt something he had never felt before in his military career. Not fear of the enemy, fear of his allies. The Coalition had asked for soldiers. Earth was sending them. But Velthar was beginning to understand that humanity did not see war the same way other species did. For the Corvians, for the other Coalition species, war was an unfortunate necessity. A last resort, something to be avoided and ended quickly. For humans, war was just another day, another challenge, another thing to survive. Velthar watched the human soldiers training in Earth's facility. They smiled. They laughed. They joked with each other. But when the training started, their eyes changed. They became something else. He was looking at a species that had weaponized its own trauma, and the galaxy had just given them permission to use it. 3 months had passed since Velthar arrived on Earth. The human battalion was now fully integrated into Coalition forces. They had been assigned to a major offensive on Keth 9, a rocky planet where the Devourers had built a stronghold. Velthar stood in the command transport, watching the tactical displays. Jiho's battalion was part of a larger force of 5,000 Coalition soldiers. The plan was simple. Advance through the canyon, eliminate the Devourer defenses, and secure the stronghold. All units, begin advance, the Coalition commander ordered. Velthar watched the blue dots representing soldiers move across the display. Everything was going according to plan. Then the red dots appeared. Hundreds of them. Ambush, someone shouted. Devourers on both canyon walls. Purple energy bolts rained down on the Coalition forces. The canyon became a killing zone. Soldiers from 3 different species fell. The tactical display showed casualties rising rapidly. Casualties at 15%, an officer reported. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Agreed, the Coalition commander said. All units fall back to Rally Point Alpha. Velthar watched the various units begin their retreat. All except one. The human battalion was not moving back. They were moving forward. Captain Jiho, you are ordered to withdraw, Velthar said into the communication channel. Jiho's voice came back calm and steady. Negative, Commander. We're pushing through. That is a direct order, Captain. Your casualties exceed acceptable levels. We're not falling back, another voice said. It was Lieutenant Yuna, Jiho's second in command. All units advance on my position. Use covering fire pattern Delta. Velthar watched in horror as the human soldiers moved. The wounded ones crawled to positions behind rocks. They set up their weapons and began firing at the devourers above. This created cover for the healthy soldiers to advance. They are using wounded soldiers as bait, Velthar said. This is madness, but it was working. The devourers focused on the obvious targets, the wounded humans who were firing at them. Meanwhile, other human soldiers climbed the canyon walls. They moved fast, using equipment that allowed them to scale the rocks. A human named Hana reached the top of the canyon wall. She placed explosive devices along the devourer position. The explosion killed dozens of the enemy. More humans followed her up. They attacked the devourers from behind. The battle turned. Within 30 minutes, the devourers were fleeing. The canyon was secure. Velthar immediately went to the surface. He found Yuna directing the recovery of wounded soldiers. She was covered in dust and blood, though he could not tell if it was hers or someone else's. "Lieutenant, I need to speak with you," Velthar said. Yuna looked at him. Her eyes were cold. "Make it quick, Commander. I have soldiers to take care of. You used wounded combatants as targets. That is against coalition military ethics." "They volunteered," Yuna said simply. "That is not the point. You deliberately—" "Every single one of them knew what they were doing," Yuna interrupted. "We briefed the tactic before the mission. Anyone who wanted to opt out could." "No one did," Velthar felt his anger rising. "You cannot use injured soldiers in combat. They need medical evacuation." Yuna stepped closer to him. She was much smaller than he was, but her presence was intense. "Commander, let me explain something. When a coalition soldier gets hit, they go into shock. Their body shuts down. They need immediate medical care. Human bodies don't work that way. We can keep fighting with injuries that would kill your species. So why waste that ability? Because it is cruel." "It is inhuman," Yuna laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Yeah, it probably is. But we're here to win, not to make you comfortable." She walked away before Velthar could respond. That night, Velthar went to the medical facility. He needed to understand what he had witnessed. A human medic named Tyek was working on a soldier who had been shot 3 times. The soldier was conscious and talking. "How is he not sedated?" Velthar asked. Tyek looked up from his work. "He doesn't need sedation. He's managing the pain. That is impossible. Those wounds would kill most species, yeah," Tyke said. He continued treating the wounds while he talked. "Humans have redundant organs. 2 kidneys. 2 lungs. Our liver can regenerate. We can lose a lot of blood and keep going. Evolution made us really hard to kill." Velthar watched as Tyke worked. Another wounded soldier was brought in. Her arm was clearly broken. She was alert and asking about her squad's status. "This is not normal," Velthar said. Tyke paused. He looked tired. "Normal for who, Commander?" "This is normal for us. Humans evolved to take damage and keep moving. Back on Earth, if an animal got hurt, it either kept going or it died. We're the descendants of the ones who kept going." Velthar left the medical facility and returned to his quarters. He accessed the human military database. He needed to understand their tactics. What he found was worse than he imagined. Humans had doctrines for everything. Acceptable casualty rates that would horrify other species. Tactics that deliberately used soldiers as bait or distractions. Strategies that assumed massive losses as normal parts of battle. One document discussed something called suppressing fire. It meant having soldiers shoot at the enemy not to kill them, but to keep them pinned down while other soldiers moved. The soldiers providing suppressing fire were expected to take casualties. It was built into the plan. Another document discussed fighting retreats. Most species retreated to save lives. Humans retreated while still fighting, deliberately sacrificing rear units to save the main force. Velthar found historical battles where human commanders had sent thousands of soldiers into certain death. Not because they were cruel, but because it was the only way to win. And the soldiers went. They knew they would die, and they went anyway. He found a term that made his blood freeze. Acceptable losses. Humans calculated how many deaths were acceptable to achieve an objective. They put numbers on lives and decided which numbers were worth it. The next day, Velthar sought out Captain Jiho. He found him near the command post, looking over battle reports. "Captain, I need answers," Velthar said. Jiho looked up. "About what, Commander?" "Your tactics. Your willingness to take casualties. Your use of wounded soldiers. Where does this come from?" Jiho was quiet for a moment. Then he gestured for Velthar to follow him. They walked to a quiet area away from other soldiers. My grandfather fought in Earth's last major war, Jiho said. He was 17 years old when he enlisted. The war lasted 4 years. He watched his friends die. He killed enemy soldiers who were also teenagers. When the war ended, he came home. But he never really came home, you know? He had nightmares until the day he died. He drank to forget. He couldn't hold a job. Why are you telling me this? Velthar asked. Because you need to understand what we are, Jiho said. Every human here has a story like that. My family, Yuna's family. Every family on Earth has lost someone to war. We've been fighting for so long that trauma is part of our DNA. We don't think about acceptable losses because we're cold. We think about it because it's the only way we know how to process what we do. But you keep volunteering, Velthar said. You keep fighting. Yes, Jiho said. Because if we don't, who will? We're good at this, Commander. Maybe too good. The galaxy needs soldiers. We need a purpose. It works out. Velthar looked at the human captain. He saw something in Jiho's eyes that he had missed before. Pain. Deep old pain that had been there so long it had become normal. You are not soldiers, Velthar said quietly. You are survivors. Jiho smiled sadly. Same thing for us. That night, Velthar updated his report. He wrote about the battle, about human tactics, about their ability to fight through injuries. But he could not write what he was really thinking. The coalition had not recruited soldiers. They had recruited a species that had weaponized their own suffering. And Velthar was beginning to fear that the galaxy was not ready for what that meant. The Coalition Council wanted a full report on human military effectiveness. They assigned Velthar to write it. He was given complete access to Earth's historical and military archives. A human historian named Professor Bora was assigned to help him. Velthar met Bora in a quiet research facility on Earth. She was an older human with gray hair and kind eyes. She showed him to a room filled with display screens and data terminals. Where would you like to begin, Commander? Bora asked. At the beginning, Velthar said. I need to understand how your species became what it is. Bora nodded. She activated a display screen. Images appeared. Ancient humans, barely more than primitive creatures, hunting large animals with simple spears. We were prey once, Bora said. Other animals hunted us, so we learned to hunt them back. We made tools. We worked in groups. We became very good at killing. The images changed, showing human settlements, then armies, then wars. How long has your species been at war? Velthar asked. Always, Bora said simply. We have records going back 6,000 years. Every single year, somewhere on Earth, humans were fighting. Sometimes small conflicts, sometimes massive wars that reshaped entire continents. Velthar spent the next week reviewing records. What he found disturbed him more each day. Humans did not fight like other species. When Corvians fought, it was over resources or territory. Clear reasons, clear goals. When the goal was achieved or proved impossible, the fighting stopped. Humans fought for reasons that made no sense to him. They fought over religious beliefs, over political ideas, over insults to their honor. They fought because their ancestors had fought. They fought because they hated each other. They fought because they loved their homeland too much to let anyone else have it. One war lasted 100 years, another 30 years. Entire generations were born, lived and died knowing nothing but war. Velthar studied the world wars. In the first one, humans killed each other with chemicals that burned their lungs and made their skin blister. They sat in muddy trenches for years, shooting at enemies they could barely see. Millions died for small pieces of land. The Second World War was worse. Humans built death factories. They put other humans in them and killed them by the millions, not soldiers. Regular people, women, children, the elderly. They killed them because of their religion or ethnicity or political beliefs. Why? Velthar asked Bora. Why would you do this to your own species? Bora looked sad. Fear, hate, greed, power. Humans are capable of great kindness, Commander. But we're also capable of great cruelty. When we're scared, we become dangerous. Velthar continued his research. He found weapons that horrified him. Humans had invented bombs that destroyed entire cities in seconds. The heat was so intense that people left only shadows on walls. The radiation poisoned the land for generations. They invented diseases and released them on purpose. They created chemical weapons that caused agonizing deaths. They built weapons designed not to kill quickly but to maximize suffering. You industrialized death, Velthar said to Bora one day. You turned killing into a science. Yes, Bora agreed. When we go to war, we commit fully. We use every resource, every technology, every advantage. We call it total war. When we fight to win no matter the cost. Velthar found military doctrines that shocked him. Humans had something called mutually assured destruction. It meant that if one group attacked another with nuclear weapons, both groups would destroy each other completely. And humans had lived with this threat for decades. They built thousands of weapons that could end their entire species, pointed them at each other, and just lived with it. He found scorched earth tactics. When humans retreated from their own land, they destroyed everything. They burned their own crops. They poisoned their own water. They demolished their own cities. All to make sure the enemy gained nothing. You would rather destroy your own world than let someone else have it, Velthar said. Sometimes, Bora admitted, when the alternative is worse. One evening, Jiho came to visit Velthar in the research facility. The captain looked tired. He had just returned from another mission. Professor Bora says you've been studying our history for weeks, Jiho said. Yes, Velthar replied. I am trying to understand. Your species has never known peace. 10,000 years of continuous warfare. How do you survive it? Jiho sat down. He was quiet for a long moment. We don't, really. Not mentally. Every generation passes trauma to the next. My grandfather's war damaged him. That damage affected my father. My father's issues affected me. It's been like that for as long as we can remember. Then why do you keep fighting? Because we don't know how to stop, Jiho said. Fighting is what we do. It's who we are. When the Coalition offered us a place in the galaxy in exchange for military service, it made sense. We're good at war. We've been practicing for 10,000 years. Velthar pulled up a historical document on his screen. I found something called the Geneva Conventions. Rules for warfare, ways to limit suffering. Your species created these rules. Yes, Jiho said. But you also broke them, repeatedly. In every major war, someone violated these rules. Yes, Jiho said again. His voice was heavy with shame. Why create rules you will not follow? Jiho looked directly at Velthar. Because we know what we're capable of. We create rules hoping we'll follow them. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we don't. When we're scared enough or desperate enough, we become monsters. The rules are there to remind us not to. They don't always work. Velthar found a young soldier named Nari one day. She was visiting the research facility to study human military history as part of her training. She was only 19 years old. Why are you here? Velthar asked her. My family has fought in every major Earth war for 8 generations, Nari said proudly. My great-great-great-great-great-grandfather fought in the First World War. My great-grandfather fought in the Third. My grandmother was a pilot. My father served in the peacekeeping forces. Now it's my turn. You speak as if war is an inheritance, Velthar said. It is, Nari replied. In my family and most human families, military service is expected. We grow up hearing war stories. We learn tactics as children. We're raised to serve. Does that not disturb you? That your entire species is built around warfare? Nari thought about it. Sometimes. But it's also given us purpose, structure, honor. War is terrible, Commander. But it's also made us who we are. Without it, I don't know what humans would be. That night, Velthar sat alone in his quarters reviewing everything he had learned. He thought about the Coalition's decision to recruit humanity. They had seen a species that could survive harsh conditions. They had seen soldiers who did not break easily, but they had not understood the full truth. Humans were not just survivors. They were not just tough. They were a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. They had practiced warfare on themselves until it became second nature. They had created weapons of mass destruction and used them. They had committed atrocities that other species could not imagine, and now the Coalition had given them the stars. Velthar began writing his report. His hand shook as he typed. Humanity represents the most effective military force encountered in Coalition history. Their ability to sustain casualties, maintain morale under extreme conditions, and employ innovative tactics exceeds all known species. However, this effectiveness comes with a concerning origin. Humans are not naturally superior warriors. They are the product of continuous warfare spanning their entire recorded history. They have normalized violence to a degree that other species find disturbing. They have weaponized their own trauma and suffering. He paused. Then he typed more. Recommendation: approve full military integration. Humanity will be valuable in the current conflict. However, long-term monitoring is advised. A species this adapted to warfare may struggle with peace. Their methods, while effective, challenge coalition ethics. We must decide if winning the current war is worth potentially changing how the entire galaxy approaches conflict. Velthar saved the document. He looked out his window at Earth below. Somewhere down there, millions of humans were training, preparing, ready to fight. The galaxy had asked for their help, but Velthar wondered if anyone truly understood what they were asking for. Humanity did not just bring soldiers. They brought 10,000 years of refined brutality. The alert came at midnight. Velthar woke to flashing red lights and urgent messages. The Devourers had launched their largest offensive in the war's history. 3 Coalition core worlds were under attack. Billions of lives were at risk. The Coalition Council held an emergency session. Velthar attended via communication link from Earth. Council members from 12 species filled the display screen, all looking terrified. "We are losing," the council leader said. "Our defensive fleets are being overwhelmed. We need immediate reinforcement." "We have no reserves," another council member said. "Every available ship is already deployed." There was silence. Then a human voice spoke. It was Ambassador Hyun, Earth's representative to the council. "Earth has reserves," Hyun said. "We can deploy our full military capacity." "How many ships?" the council leader asked. 2,000 warships. 500,000 soldiers. Full support fleet. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. "You had this many ships and did not tell us?" "You asked for a battalion," Hyun said calmly. "That's what we sent. You didn't ask about our full capacity." "Deploy them immediately," the council leader ordered. Velthar watched as Earth's full military might entered the war. The ships that arrived were different from the ones humans had sent before. These were larger, heavier, covered in weapons that Velthar did not recognize. Admiral Minho commanded the human fleet. He was a cold-eyed man who spoke little but moved with absolute confidence. Velthar was assigned as a liaison officer to his flagship. "Admiral, the Coalition is grateful for your assistance," Velthar said when they met. Minho looked at him. "We're not here to help, Commander. We're here to win." "There's a difference." The human fleet arrived at the first contested world. The Devourers had already taken control of orbital space and were landing ground forces. Coalition defenders were barely holding on. Minho called a strategy meeting. Coalition commanders from 4 species attended. Velthar stood in the back watching. "The Devourers have numerical superiority," a Corvian admiral said. "Standard doctrine suggests we establish a defensive perimeter and wait for reinforcements." "No," Minho said simply. "No?" the Corvian admiral repeated. "Admiral, we cannot win a direct engagement." "We're not going to engage them directly," Minho said. He pulled up a tactical display. "We're going to target their civilian supply ships, cut off their food, their water, their medical supplies, force them to choose between fighting and surviving." The room went silent. A Valen commander spoke up. "That violates the Coalition laws of warfare. We do not target civilian vessels." "You asked us to help," Minho said. "This is how humans win wars. We break the enemy's ability to fight, all of it. Military and civilian." "That is barbaric," the Valen commander said. Minho's expression did not change. "Yes, it is. It's also effective. You can follow Coalition law and lose, or you can follow our lead and win. Choose." The Coalition commanders looked at each other. Finally, the Corvian admiral spoke. "We will defer to human tactics for this engagement." Velthar watched in horror as the human fleet executed Minho's plan. They did not attack the Devourer warships directly. Instead, they hunted down supply vessels, transport ships, medical frigates, ships that carried food and water to Devourer forces. Within 3 days, the Devourer army on the planet's surface began to collapse, not because they were defeated in battle, but because they were starving. Their soldiers began surrendering just to get food, but Minho was not done. When the Devourers tried to retreat, human ships blocked their escape routes. They captured thousands of Devourer soldiers. "What are you doing with the prisoners?" Velthar asked. "Using them," Minho said. The human forces broadcast messages to other Devourer units. The messages showed the prisoners being treated well, being fed, receiving medical care. But the messages also made clear the prisoners were hostages. If Devourer forces attacked certain human positions, the prisoners would be executed. "You cannot do this," Velthar said. "This violates every principle of coalition warfare." "Then turn me in after we win," Minho replied. "Right now we're saving lives. Coalition lives, that's what matters." The tactic worked. Devourer commanders became hesitant to attack positions where human forces held their people hostage. It slowed their advance and gave coalition forces time to regroup. On the second contested world, Major Yuna led the ground forces. Velthar accompanied her unit. The Devourers had dug into defensive positions in a major city. Coalition doctrine said to surround the city and starve them out over months. Yuna had a different plan. "We're going to fake a retreat," she said at the mission briefing. "We'll pull back from our forward positions. Make it look like we're giving up. The Devourers will advance to occupy what we left behind." "And then?" a coalition officer asked. "Then we destroy those positions," Yuna said. "With them in it." The coalition officer looked shocked. "You're going to bomb your own fallback positions?" "They won't be ours anymore," Yuna said. "They'll be theirs. And yes, we're going to bomb them. With everything we have." The plan worked exactly as Yuna described. Human forces retreated. The Devourers, sensing victory, rushed forward to occupy the abandoned positions. Then human ships in orbit dropped bombs. Not regular explosives. Nuclear weapons. The blast killed thousands of Devourers instantly. The radiation poisoned the area for years to come, but it broke the Devourer defense. The city fell within hours. Velthar confronted Yuna after the battle. "You used nuclear weapons on a populated world. You poisoned the land. The city was already destroyed," Yuna said. "We just finished the job. And we won, didn't we?" "At what cost?" Yuna looked tired. "At the cost of coalition lives saved. Every Devourer we killed there is one that won't kill your people. You asked us to fight. This is how we fight." On the third world, the battle was the worst. The Devourers were making their final stand. They had millions of soldiers entrenched across an entire continent. Commander Suri coordinated the human response from orbit. She proposed a strategy that made Velthar's blood freeze. "We create a firestorm," Suri explained to the Coalition High Command. "We bomb in a circular pattern, creating winds that feed into a central point. The fire becomes self-sustaining. Everything in the target zone burns. That will kill millions," a coalition commander said. "Millions of enemies," Suri replied. "And it will end the war. Without it, this battle could last years. How many coalition soldiers will die in those years?" The coalition command authorized the strategy. Velthar watched from Suri's ship as human bombers created the firestorm. The continent below turned into an ocean of fire. The temperatures were so high that metal melted. Stone turned to glass. When it was over, the Devourer army was destroyed, but so was the continent. Nothing would grow there for generations. That night, Velthar found Jiho in the mess hall. The captain was sitting alone, staring at his food without eating. "Captain," Velthar said, "I need to understand the tactics your people used, the brutality, the complete disregard for the rules of warfare. Where does this come from?" Jiho looked up at him. His eyes were hollow. "You wanted to know the dark truth about humanity's battlegrounds, Commander? This is it. We don't fight to win battles. We fight to end wars, and we've learned that the fastest way to end a war is to make it so terrible that the enemy can't continue. We don't just defeat armies. We break their will to fight. But the cost is what we're willing to pay," Jiho interrupted. "We've paid it before. On Earth, we paid it countless times. We burned our own cities. We poisoned our own lands. We killed millions of our own people, all to win wars. You think what we did here was brutal? This was mercy compared to what we've done to ourselves." Velthar sat down across from Jiho. "You are not soldiers. You are monsters," Jiho did not argue. "Yes, that's what you asked us to be. That's what we're good at. The coalition wanted effective fighters. You got them. But effectiveness in war means being willing to do terrible things. It means making choices that haunt you forever. It means becoming something you hate. How do you live with it?" "We don't," Jiho said quietly. "Not really. We just survive. Same as always." Velthar returned to his quarters. He pulled up casualty reports. The Devourers had lost millions of soldiers, but they had also begun retreating from coalition space. Not because they were militarily defeated, but because they were terrified. The human forces had done something no coalition army had managed. They had made the Devourers afraid. Velthar began updating his report, but his hands shook too much to type. He had come to understand humanity's dark truth. They were not superior warriors. They were not brave heroes. They were a species so damaged by war that they had learned to weaponize their own cruelty, and they were winning because of it.